Here we are in Mark chapter 8, and Mark is a gospel that is 16 chapters long, and so we're in the midpoint. And although Mark did not write with chapters and verses in mind, in the beginning of Mark's gospel, Jesus has just a few people around him. And then by the midpoint, by right here, his ministry is at its zenith. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of people showing up wherever he goes. He can't go into a town or a village without causing massive gridlock in the town. No one can move. And then as the gospel continues on, at the very end, when Jesus is on the cross, again, he's surrounded by almost no one. So he begins with no one around him. He ends with no one around him. But here, at this point, the crowds are at their highest. And, you know, can you imagine being one of his disciples? You know, you left everything to follow this man. You left your family. You left your home. You left your business. You left your friends. And you never know how things are going to turn out when you leave everything behind. But now we're at like hundreds, thousands of people showing up. Are you feeling pretty good about yourself? Like you made a good choice? Like, yeah, you've hitched your star to Jesus' star, and his star is taking off. But then Jesus starts saying things like, I'm going to have to undergo great suffering, and the elders are going to reject me, and so are the chief priests and the scribes, and I'm going to be killed. And like a PR manager, Peter runs over to Jesus. No, 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 no. You start talking this crazy stuff, and it's all going to go away. Look what we've built. Look at what we've done. Like, this is success. We are making it, and there's still room to grow. But you start talking about like everyone's going to reject you and they're going to kill you, it's all going to go away. And you can see Peter be concerned for Jesus, but I would imagine there's also a fair bit of Peter concern for Peter as well. Remember, it was hitched to Jesus' star. He gave up everything to follow this guy, and he doesn't want to see the crowds whittle out, which, of course, in a way, Peter was right. Because at this point, the whole thing turns around. I think there's a lot to Jesus turning and rebuking Peter and saying, you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things. I mean, it's 2,000 years ago. It's a different world. They speak different language. They're wearing different clothes. The culture is totally different. But they knew what success looked like. They knew what human measures of success look like. You have lots of people, you're really successful. You have a few people or no people, you're not very successful. And what Jesus is doing here is he's trying to challenge Peter to open up his mind, because his understanding, the typical understanding of what success is, might not be the right one. We are today subjected to somewhere between 300 and 700 marketing messages every single day. 300 to 700 advertisements. Whether, if you listen to the radio or you watch television, there's commercials that are, bombarding you all day long. If you open up your email, there's, every store you've ever gone to wants to tell you about some sale they have going on. You go onto just a normal web page just to like read the news or something like that, and there's banner advertisements. You go onto YouTube or watch a video, and there's always a video that is before it to sell you something that you can't click past it until you have to wait 5 to 10 seconds to do so. You come to church, the priest says, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. And we become, we've been told, communicated to, since we were knee-high to a grasshopper, that success, self-fulfillment, happiness, a sense of peace and security, that attaining those things for yourself is the most important thing in life. I don't think anyone actually sits us down and tells us that. I don't think I did, but I certainly got the message. Achieving happiness for myself, achieving security for myself, the peace, the most important thing. And of course, every single one of those 300 to 700 advertisements that pass our gaze every single day are feeding right into that. And they're saying, success, happiness, self-fulfillment is just one product away. This product, right? It's just one service away. It's just one course away. It's just one trip away. If you do this, everything's going to be great. And you are going to feel every bit as self-fulfilled and confident as Matthew McConaughey sitting in the front seat of a Lincoln, right? And then we go and we maybe get the thing, whatever it is. We go out and we get the thing, and we've been excited for it, and we feel like this is going to be it. This is going to do it. And then we get it, and then what? Right? Like I got a new phone. Like that's great, but it's shinier. It's a couple nanoseconds faster than the last one. But you know what? It basically does the same thing as the last one did. You get a new car. It smells good, but it basically just gets you from point A to point B like the last one did. And then so we then look for the next thing that's going to bring us happiness and self-fulfillment and peace and security for us, because that's the most important thing, right? Jesus continues. And just as he's saying this, I want you to imagine the look on Peter, his PR manager's face, okay? If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. Can you just imagine Peter over, like, oh my gosh, we're through. This is not a winning message. This is not something that sells, which is probably one of the reasons why the crowds thin out after this. He doesn't promise wealth and self-fulfillment and everything's going to be, you just believe in me and you're going to be healthy and smart and better looking and confident. Take up your cross and deny yourself. And of course, Jesus doesn't just say this, he does it, right? God sends Jesus into the world not for God's sake, not so he could look good with the other angels around the heavenly water cooler. God sends Jesus for us. Jesus lives his entire life not for his own sake, but for others and for us. Jesus dies not for his own sake, but for ours. It's not just a teaching, it's a pattern of living. And Jesus doesn't just live it, he asks us to follow it as well, to turn ourselves away from ourselves and to serve others. So I was getting ready for this week and this sermon. I was thinking through all of the products that I've, recently bought or thought about buying that I thought was going to, bring me ultimate fulfillment, and how I get it, and I go, and I set it aside. But I got to thinking about other things in my life, and very rarely do I ever do something for someone else that's meaningful, like fulfill someone's need. Would I ever do that and regret it? Like if you knit a square for one of the prayer blankets, how long does it take to do a square? Maybe an hour? I mean, my guess is if we brought all of the stitchers together and we said, after stitching for an hour, do you regret it? Do you think, well, I've wasted that hour? My guess is probably not. When you sit down and you put the blankets together, I doubt at the end of it you go, well, that was a waste. Like there's a fulfillment there. When we, bake a meatloaf that gets sent down to Keensburg, I would bet very few of us regret that decision. When our youth and adults get up and go to Appalachia in the summer to serve the rural impoverished, and you walk away at the end of the week after working in their home and the homeowners are crying and you're crying, none of us go, well, that was a wasted week. When you see someone like fall in the street or at the store, and you run over and you help pick them up and you help get their bag back together and you ask them if they're okay, and you can see the look of relief on their eyes that you helped them, none of us walk away and say, well, I wish I hadn't have done that. And I think part of the reason there is because that is where the life is. I mean, when you do something that's meaningful for someone else, and there's just even like the littlest bit of gratitude there, like there's a lightness that comes about you for like the rest of the day. You probably think about it later in the day. You probably tell your spouse, your friends, your neighbors, you call up your kids or something like that, and you say, look, this happened. And we could call it lightness. We could call it like magic. It just feels so good. But I think the churchy word there works just as well. It's a blessing. It's that little bit for that square, for that blanket, from that meatloaf, for that bag of canned food, for that helping that person up. You're offering a blessing. And part of what I think that feels good as you walk away is that you get a little of the blessing too. Because you're not just focused on your own happiness, self-security, fulfillment, all of that, but for that moment, you've opened yourself up to the other. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And a big reason of why it's beautiful is because it's how Jesus came, it's how Jesus lived, it's how Jesus died, and it's how Jesus invites us to live too. Perhaps today we could just think back over the last week and think of, when were the times that we got to feel that little bit of glory when we were able to serve someone else? Or even that little bit of glory when we got served. Maybe we were the one that fell in the grocery store and someone came and picked us up. Or maybe we were the one that was sick and someone brought us a meal. Or someone told us that they were praying for us. Like, it goes both ways. Like when did you experience the glory of self-sacrificing love this week from a friend, a neighbor, or a total stranger? And then after spending a moment or two thinking back, maybe spend a moment or two thinking forward over this week. And how can we craft tomorrow morning or Wednesday afternoon so that we can be a blessing for another, that blessings might abound. Amen.